he's a good person to look at to see how um, the changes happened. And there's all sorts of debate about whether or not Machiavelli uh, meant these things or he was being satirical and trying to mock the way that people actually did things in the world. But one way or the other, people took him to be teaching this. And we've talked a little bit about philosophical realism. Philosophical realism used to mean that you believed that there was an actual nature to reality, an integrated nature, an intended nature, that there was a proper use of things and of reality and of yourself. There was a proper way to live according to nature, and there was a way to live against nature. Well, the term realist ends up shifting its meaning to become something more of a political term. A realpolitik is sometimes the term that's used now, but a political realist is someone who is a metaphysical nihilist when it comes to society and people, that there is no ontological nature, there's no proper way for things to be organized according to their nature, but instead, things are the way they are because coercive force is applied to them. And if that force goes away or a stronger force comes along, reality changes shape. And Machiavelli, he talks about the organization of society. He splits things up into the secular sphere, which runs on different principles than the church, the church sphere, and instead says that the secular sphere doesn't have a nature, but it has a change. You can change its shape by adding force, and he seems to be a materialist, though there's debate about that. But he says his focus is firmly on the material and the practical, quote unquote, practical world. He just denies the relevance of traditional metaphysical concerns for political life at all. And Machiavelli says the stability of society depends on the effective exercise of power. The ruler's ability to assert control, maintain authority, is what ensures social order, prevents chaos, and societies are then shaped by those in power who use force and laws in order to structure relationships and maintain cohesion amongst the populace, right? So by force, the society retains its shape. And he says so that because of that, rulers can't think in terms of moral and immoral, right? Because often you have to act what would be considered immoral if you were just an individual in order to maintain power, but that's a protection to society. So he rejects the notion, the idea that ethical considerations should always guide political actions because it's power that shapes society, right? And you have to override traditional moral frameworks and be pragmatic, right? So the realist is the one who's willing to just be pragmatic and worry about results over any sort of ideals. And this approach ends up redefining societal values, right? Security is more important, success is more important than virtue. And since power is the fundamental force shaping society, it defines all of our secular relationships. It establishes order. It determines the trajectory of communities, of states, of political societies, and that the effective exercise of power that is adaptable and pragmatic is crucial for stability and prosperity. And so a good leader often reshapes the cultural and moral values of a society to align it with their goals. So you might have to promote a new ideology or different ideologies that to when a society needs to be changed in order to get them into conflict with one another so that then you can reunite people under a common purpose. and he says sometimes you need to manipulate religious and cultural symbols to get people to do what you want, because it's not about adhering to ethical absolutes or submitting to the shape that God intends for the world, but about achieving pragmatic results. Um, so instead of being under the Dominion mandate that says our goal is to bring things to their intended end, is to transform things into what they can be for the service of our neighbor and for the glory of God. It changes us to there's a dominating mandate under nothing, right? There's nothing above the state. The state is is the ultimate authority, and so since there's no proper way for society to be organized, power shapes it from the outside. And I've mentioned before that there was a Huguenot lawyer in Geneva in the late 1500s, a parliamentarian um, named Innocent Gentilet, who wrote discourses against Machiavelli, because in within less than 100 years from his death, 50 years after his death, because these ideas were spreading, and because they're really popular, obviously, amongst the powerful. There's nothing above us, only sky, and so there's no hell waiting. It's just power, you and I, and power, and who's willing to take it, right? So this realist understanding of society, what it does is, we talked about Aristotle's kinds of knowledges a couple days ago. Well, what this does is it takes the role of the leader in society, and it moves it from a theoretical and a practical knowledge, a theoretical knowledge being an understanding of virtue, understanding of the nature of things, the principles of reality, and then practical knowledge, the ability to which if you might remember, is phronesis, the practical knowledge, which is the ability to enact an understanding of virtue, an ability to enact a well-developed moral imagination, to make the right decision and then live according to know what the right decision is and live according to it. It takes it away from that and makes makes ruling productive knowledge, right? A techne, the ability to create a thing in the world, and produce the effect that you want, which makes sense if you're a leather worker, right? It makes sense if you're a plumber. It makes sense, it makes sense even if you are a a poet or a writer, right? You understand how your calling works, and then you apply it. But organizing society, to think of it only in terms of a productive knowledge, undercuts the ability for your ruler in a society to be a good ruler. But what Machiavelli says is a good ruler is judged based on what that ruler produces, not on whether that ruler is a good person or not, or he's a moral person or not, right? And this is we have bought into this wholesale for a couple hundred years now, and so it's really hard to even imagine what would it look like for a ruler in society to say, actually, it would be immoral to do that thing. And people say, oh, but it makes us safer. Makes things better. You have to do it. So, well, but it would be immoral, and it would be against the law. But the idea that the ruler is under law, and their job is to live a virtuous life and then enact a virtuous life socially. Even the word virtue, we have thinned it down to just be something that is individual, right? So, well, they're a good person individually. They're a good person in their life, right? They're nice to their kids, but they're not, you don't talk about virtue in terms of a ruler obeying the law, for example, right? Or wanting the laws to be in line with reality, wanting the laws to be in line with eternal principles, that sort of thing. We don't even have those conversations because we've all become Machiavellians. We have all moved the understanding of how to be a good ruler into that area simply of productive knowledge. And Machiavelli's argument is outside of the church, everything is just productive knowledge. There are no eternal principles. So whether he was being satirical or not, it was subtle enough that most people took it to be a way of, his most famous book is The Prince, but he wrote quite a bit, and if you read throughout his other writings, he does seem to believe in realpolitik or political realism, and uh, that is it's been it's a civilization destroying understanding of the world.